All right. So with consumer theory, basically, we try to look at the behavior of the consumer. Yeah. So how is this consumer going to behave as he or she wants to maximize utility that is derived from the consumption of different commodities? Yeah. So we will try to look at the behavior of the consumer. What is the utility maximizing point? At what point will the consumer, you know, confirm that the utility has been maximized? Yeah, but of course we also know that in as much as consumers want to maximize their utility, they are constrained by finances. Yeah. So we first yeah, so we'll look at the different properties of consumer utility. We'll be looking at transitivity and the other ones, consistency and the like. Okay, yeah. So what we know is that consumers basically aim at utility maximization. Yeah, they aim at utility maximization, but then this thing called utility can be ranked. Okay, consumers can try to rank them, can try to say, okay, from the consumption of this commodity I derive this much utility, from the consumption of this commodity I derive this much this much utility. So consumers try to order, like they try to order these different bundles according to the utility or satisfaction that they give. Okay, yeah, but of course the best way to use when trying to give these rankings is to use the concept of marginal utility, right? Just using the concept of marginal utility, let's say of good X, which is just a change in utility from the consumption of good X. So we want to understand, if I increase the consumption of good X by 1 unit of X, how is this going to affect my utility? Okay, so all we want is try to by using the concept of marginal utility, we can try to find best ways of ranking these different utility levels that consumers derive from the consumption of these various commodities that they consume. Okay, so so marginal utility is just the increase in utility as a result of the consumption of an additional unit of a particular good. That's just marginal utility. So it's the margin of utility as we increase the consumption of good X. How is this good X affecting the utility that we are deriving? Okay, so basically this thing called utility, if you are analyzing it from the cardinal point of view, it has got units. And what are these units? They are what we call utils. So you can say I derive 4 utils, I derive 7 utils from the consumption of this particular commodity. The other assumption is that you can measure the level of utility that you are consuming from a given, that you are deriving from the consumption of a given commodity. That is the assumption. But in the real world, it's practically impossible for one to measure utility. What metric are you going to use for you to measure this thing called utility? It's one of those fun assumptions that we make, that consumers can measure and therefore give the precise rankings of these various utility levels that consumers derive from the consumption of different goods and services. Okay, but of course what we know is that as long as the good you're dealing with is a normal good, marginal utility should be, it should reach at a given point where beyond that particular point your marginal utility starts falling. In short, consumer taste should obey the law of diminishing marginal utility. Okay, so consumer taste must obey the assumption of, or the law of diminishing marginal utility. where what we know is that yes, a utility will be increasing, but this increase in marginal utility will be at a decreasing rate. Initially the increase is 7, then the next is 6, then the next is 5. So in as much as total utility is increasing, but marginally we are increasing at a diminishing rate. So that is the concept of diminishing marginal utility. So consumer tastes usually obey the law of diminishing marginal utility from a good if each extra unit consumed adds successively less to total utility. But this does not mean that total utility is falling. Total utility can be increasing, but it is increasing at a diminishing rate. Okay, so increasing, yes, it is increasing, but this marginal increase keeps on falling and falling and falling. So let's try to analyze that using this table. So when you consume the first unit there, your total utility is 50, which means that your marginal utility is nothing. This is practically something. Anyway, it's not that much correct. Anyways, yeah. So according to the table, you consume the first unit, your total utility is 50. When you consume the next unit, the second unit, your total utility has increased from 50 to 95, meaning that the marginal is the difference between the 95 and the 50. So in this case, it's more like you are saying marginal utility is just utility 2 minus utility 1. So this is 95 less 50. Yeah, 95 less the 50, which is giving us the 45. So that's the marginal there. It's just the current one minus the previous one. So if the current one is 95, because you're consuming 2 units, initially your total utility was only 50. Therefore, it means that the marginal, what this extra unit has added to total utility, is 45 utils. Okay, then you consume the third unit there, your total utility increases from 95 to 135. So as usual, we get the difference between the 135 minus the 95. This is giving us the margin of 40, meaning that this third unit that you've consumed has added 40 units, 40 utils to the total utility. Okay, so this has added 40 utils to total utility. Okay, and then you consume the fourth unit, total utility has increased from 135 to 170, meaning that this fourth unit that you've consumed has only added 30 utils to total utility. Okay, you do the same, you consume the fifth unit, you have got 195 total utility. The marginal is only 25. So now if you look at the pattern, total utility, yes, keeps on increasing. It keeps on increasing from 50 to 215 now. But when you look at the impact of each additional unit that is being consumed, the impact keeps on reducing. And that is the concept of diminishing marginal utility. So that is the concept of diminishing marginal utility, meaning that the utility that the increase in utility keeps on falling. Okay, it keeps on falling. Okay, yeah, so the utility keeps on falling. So that is the concept of diminishing marginal utility. So that's the concept of diminishing marginal utility. Okay, how is that? Okay, that's good. Okay. Yeah, but what we know is that, in as much as consumers want to maximize their utility, as we've already said, they're constrained by finances. So there is now the concept of this consumer trying to maximize his utility, given that there's an income level, and then there's also a price that he or she is supposed to pay per each unit of a commodity that he buys. Okay, so now, uh, practically the basic model of consumer theory has four main elements, right? So we have got the consumer's income, the price at which the goods can be bought, then also issues to do with consumer tastes and preferences. Okay, because these consumer tastes and preferences will actually help us rank different bundles of these goods according to the satisfaction that the consumer derives from the consumption of those commodities, right? So if your tastes are oriented towards, let's say, Fanta, compared to Coca-Cola, it's obvious that they're going to rank Fanta, highly than Coca-Cola, because your tastes are oriented towards Fanta. Okay, and then that also means that you prefer Fanta to Coca-Cola. Therefore, if you're ranking them, it's obvious that Fanta will be number one, followed by Coca-Cola. So the consumer tastes, and preferences actually helps in ranking these various bundles of goods and services. Of course, depending on the satisfaction that the consumer is going to derive from these various commodities. Okay, and then the other element, or the other factor that is worth discussing under this basic mode of consumer theory is that of rationality. Okay, here what we're saying is that, consumers are rational. They want to maximize their utility, therefore they will do whatever it is in their power to make sure that they derive the maximum utility from the consumption of these commodities. Okay, yeah, consumers pick the bundle that will maximize his or her utility. So a consumer is going to pick that bundle that is going to help this guy maximize his utility. In short, consumers are rational. They are rational, right? So it's the concept of rationality that applies here. That these guys are rational, and since they're rational, they try to maximize their utility. So for them to do that, they'll pick that particular bundle that is going to help them maximize their utility. Okay, so these are the elements of a basic model of consumer theory. Okay, yeah, but of course we've said already that in as much as these consumers try to maximize their utility, they are constrained by the budget that they have, right? And one of the components falling under the budget is the income itself. Okay, it's the income. So we know that your income will actually determine if at all you're able to consume those commodities that you want. If your income is favorable, it's obvious you'll manage, and if your income is bad, it's obvious that you won't be able to buy those particular commodities that you want. So in this case, as usual, we are making an assumption that the consumer is consuming two goods, good X and good Y. Okay, yeah, we've got two goods, good X and good Y, and then the consumer is given some amount of income that this guy is supposed to consume. So what we know is that if x1 is on the x-axis, x2 is on the y-axis, then there is a budget line somewhere. Yeah, there is this budget constraint somewhere that will actually help this guy know how many units of good X and good Y he or she can consume at maximum. So for instance, for us to draw this budget line, right? For us to draw this budget line, what we need is just this budget constraint So we need the amount of income M, we need the price of good X, and also the price of good Y. Okay, so let's assume that the price of X is just PX, price of Y is PY. It's better to work with letters, because the moment to understand letters, it will be easy for us to apply the concept when dealing with numbers. Yeah, so let's say we want to find out how that point was actually graphed, which is x2, their maximum units of good x2. So what we know is that along x2, along this line here, along x2, x1 is 0. In short, if the consumer is consuming at that maximum point where this big dot is, it means that this guy is using all his income to consume good x2, meaning that there is no unit of good x1 that is bought. In short, when x1 is 0, it means that using our budget constraint, it means that, so there let's put x1, there let's also put x1. Yeah, so this means that if x1 is 0, okay, and here let's put x2. Yeah, if x1 is 0, it means that it's like this: price of good x1 multiplied by x1 plus the price of good x2 multiplied by x2 should equal the amount of income we have. But then, if this guy is not consuming any unit of good x1, it means that it's like this: price of x1 multiplied by 0 plus price of good x2 multiplied by x2. This should give us the amount of income. Therefore, this part here is just 0. Okay, this then means that price of good x2 multiplied by x2 is exactly equal to your amount of income. Therefore, if we divide throughout by price of good x2, even there by price of good x2, we cancel those. It means that at max you can consume M over price of x2 units of good x2, meaning that at that particular point there, okay, this then means that at that particular point at the max there, it's just amount of income divided by price of good x2, which also means that here, okay, so we are following this budget line, therefore it also means that there it's just M over price of good x1, because these are maximum points. So we are assuming that the consumer is only consuming one commodity at a time, dedicating all his income to the consumption of this particular one, one commodity at a time. Therefore, you're consuming nothing of the other commodity. So that is how the budget line is actually constructed. So it is after finding these maximum points, which we are calling the intercepts, that then you draw this line that is connecting those 2 points. Then you come up with a budget. Line. Okay, so that's how this budget line was actually drawn. Then there is this assumption that for consumers to maximize their utility, okay, for consumers to maximize their utility, that for consumers to maximize their utility, they should have a combination of different bundles, of course, that gives them or gives this guy the same level of utility. But then among those bundles, there should be only one bundle where at that particular bundle the slope of the indifference curve is exactly equal to the slope of the budget line. Okay, so what we are saying is that there is this concept, the concept of indifference caves. Okay, there is this concept, the concept of indifference caves, and indifference caves are just a cave or a line, a locus of points that shows the various combinations of two goods. In this case, it's good X1 and good X2. That gives the consumer the same level of satisfaction. Okay, so it's just it shows a set of consumption bundles among which the individual is indifferent. So the fact that the individual is indifferent, it means that this guy does not really care whether he's at bundle A or bundle B or whatever. He's going to be deriving the same level of satisfaction. So it's a case like this, where, for instance, let's say we have the first bundle there. Let's call that bundle A. Let's call another one there bundle B. Then let's call this one there bundle C. So it's a case like that where we have got X2 there, X1 there, right? And then we go there, we have another bundle. Let's call that X2 prime. Let's call this X1 prime. Then we have another bundle, the last bundle there. Let's call that X2 prime prime. Then that again X1 prime prime. What we're saying is that if this is indeed an indifference cave, then the consumer is indifferent among these three bundles. If you give the consumer bundle A, he's going to be happy. If you give the consumer bundle B, he's also going to be happy. If you give him bundle C, the same, he's going to be happy. In short, he's indifferent. Okay, he's indifferent, among these bundles. Okay, so therefore, it means that for this guy to be indifferent, this level of utility at A, okay, so utility at A should equal utility at B, which should also equal utility at C. Then this guy is indeed indifferent. Okay, then this guy is indeed indifferent. Okay, so an indifference cave therefore shows all the consumption bundles, which gives the consumer the same level of utility. Okay, yeah, therefore gives the consumer the same level of utility. Why? It's because utility doesn't change along a given indifference cave. So utility doesn't change along a given indifference cave. It just remains constant. Okay, so it remains constant. Therefore, an indifference cave is nothing but a locus of points that shows the various combinations of two goods X1 and X2 from which the consumer derives the same level of satisfaction. Okay, yeah, so the case is like this one here, where we have good X and good Y in this case. So we have good Y1 comma, so good X1 comma Y1, good X2 comma Y2. So let's say there's a point there A, and then there's a point there B. So the consumer is indifferent between A and B. Yeah, the consumer is indifferent between A and B. No wonder these two bundles are actually lying on the same indifference cave. So combinations X1, Y1, okay. Yeah, we put A there, then X2, Y2, we put B. The 2 points provide the same level of utility. No wonder they are falling on the same indifference cave. Okay, let me see now. How is it going? Oh, okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, yeah. So now, what we know is that, for instance, let's assume that these are the various combinations that we have. We have got combinations from A to H. Various combinations, 20 comma something, something comma something, something comma, just like that. We have these various combinations of these two commodities. Yeah, so now what we want therefore is to know, right, whether the consumer is going to have this one combination that is going to maximize this utility. Okay. So to explain the theory of consumer behavior, we'll ask whether consumers prefer one market basket to another. Is bundle A preferred to bundle B? Is bundle B preferred to bundle C? It's obvious that if A is preferred to B, which means that this guy is deriving much utility from A compared to B. Right, so that's our goal. That's our goal. Okay. So now, in short, first of all, let's discuss these properties or assumptions of consumer preferences. Okay. And anyways, yeah, I've seen a number of questions about these, the properties of consumer preferences, transitivity, completeness, and the rest. Okay. So when you say that consumers' preferences are complete, it means that, well, given bundles A, B, this guy is able to say that, well, I prefer this to that. Okay. As long as this consumer is willing, so is able to rank these bundles according to the level of satisfaction that he or she is deriving from the consumption of these commodities, then if these preferences are complete, it means that consumers can compare and rank all the possible baskets. Okay, therefore, for any two market bundles, A and B, a consumer will prefer, let's say, A to B or B to A, or this guy will just be indifferent between these two. This then means that these preferences are complete. So when you say that consumer preferences are complete, we just mean that there are three possible responses that you're going to get from a given consumer. It's either response number one, it's either this guy is saying A is preferred to B, or the second response could be B is actually preferred to A, or the last response could be that this guy is indifferent. Okay, this guy is indifferent between these two bundles. Then if that is the case, then it means that preferences are complete. Okay, that means that the preferences are complete. So for these preferences to be complete, the consumer should be able to compare and rank all possible bundles. Okay, yeah. Okay, so that's the first property of preferences. Consumer preferences are complete. Complete in the sense that this consumer is able to compare and rank these various combinations. Yeah, so the consumer is able to compare and rank these various combinations. Okay. Yeah, he's able to compare and rank these various combinations. Of course, this ranking depends on utility, the amount of satisfaction that he or she derives. Okay. Then the second one is that of transitivity. Okay. When we say that consumer preferences are transitive, it means that if you are given three bundles, for instance, A, bundle B, and let's say bundle C, if the consumer reports that A is preferred to B, and then B is preferred to C, practically it makes more sense that since this guy is having three bundles, A, B, C, and he or she has reported that A is preferred to B, B is preferred to C, therefore it means that C is actually the inferior one. Okay? Then that automatically means that A should also be preferred to C. So preferences are transitive, meaning that if a consumer prefers basket A to basket B and basket B to basket C, then the consumer also prefers A to C. In short, are these preferences consistent? So transitivity is normally regarded as necessary for consumer consistency. If you are consistent, are you consistent in your reporting? Okay, because practically it doesn't make sense to say I prefer A to B, I prefer B to C, and I also prefer C to A. It doesn't make sense because there are just the three bundles, A, B, C. If you love A than B, at the same time you love B than C, then it makes sense that you also love A than C. Alright, so that is the property of transitivity. With transitivity, all we are saying is that the consumer has to be consistent in his reporting about his preferences, right? You have to be consistent in your reporting. Okay, you have to be consistent in your reporting. So that's the second, that's the second property there. Okay. Okay, yeah. And then the last one is more is better. This is very common. Okay, yeah, more is better basically means that, well, we are rational beings. We want more of anything. We want more of food, we want more of money, we want more of cars, we want more of everything. We are just like that. By nature, human beings are selfish because you want more of a particular commodity than having less of it. So goods are assumed to be desirable, right? So you want more. Consumers prefer more of a good to less. Okay, in short, they are never satisfied. Yeah, more is always better, even if it's just a little better. But as long as it's more, I prefer to have more, no matter how small this more is. As long as it's more, I want to have more of a particular commodity. So more is better than less, right? So these are the properties of consumer preferences: completeness, transitivity, more is better. There should be the fourth one. Just what is it called? Forgotten. But there should be the fourth one. Okay. So far, so good, right? How is it so far? Okay, that's perfect. Yeah. Okay. Now we are saying that let's try to describe an individual's preferences, right? Yeah, so we have these various combinations. of these two goods, good X and good, in this case we have good food and clothing. Yeah, we've got food and clothing. So what we are saying is that we can put up an indifference cave. Yeah, we can put up an indifference cave that should actually give us the combinations of those commodities from which a consumer derives the same level of utility. Yeah, so we have combination B there on top, we've got A there, we have got D there. So this is giving us the indifference cave. The question is, why can't we, for instance, have a combination E, or maybe have this combination and maybe even that combination on this indifference curve? The answer is that is practically impossible. Why? Because if we draw this indifference curve there is no way that H and B can be on the same indifference curve, because by definition an indifference curve should have those combinations from which a consumer derives the same level of utility. But as you can see, H there is lower, is actually falling on a lower indifference curve, right? E is also falling on a higher indifference curve, and then G here is falling on a far much lower indifference curve. Therefore, the only combinations that should fall on this indifference curve is B, A, and D, because the consumer is going to be deriving the same level of satisfaction from these combinations, right? As you can see, let's try to make these combinations. So let's start with B. B is, we have got 10 and 50, so it's 10, 50. Then A, the middle one, we've got 30, 20. Yeah, we've got 30, 20, 30, 20, and then we have this other one, D, we've got 40, 20. Okay, these combinations are the only combinations that will give the consumer the same level of satisfaction. The moment we try to put, let's say, H there, H is lying on a lower indifference curve, as we can see. Then G is also lying on a lower indifference curve. If we try to put E is even lying on a high indifference curve, meaning that there is no way that these combinations can be lying on the same indifference curve. Practically, there is no way. Okay, because if we do that, then it means that we'll fail to, in short, yeah, we won't be obeying the law of transitivity. Okay, because according to the law of transitivity, there is no way that two combinations that gives the consumer different levels of utility can end up lying on the same indifference curve. It doesn't work like that. Under transitivity, it can't happen like that, right? So therefore, the indifference curve, this indifference curve that passes through A, shows the baskets that the consumer will get the same level of satisfaction. So A, B, and C, those are the combinations from which the consumer will get the same level of satisfaction. Okay, but of course what we know is that practically if you're given a choice, you'd rather go for E, right? You'd rather go for E because E is giving you that much level of utility. But the question is, are you going to afford that particular bundle? Choosing is another thing, but you being able to afford is another thing. Okay, choosing, you can choose. I want to be driving a Benz. The question is, are you going to manage to buy a Benz? Okay, so yeah, we have that combination and indifference curve right there. Okay, so now a group of indifference curves gives us what we call indifference maps. Okay, so an indifference map is just a graph containing a set of indifference curves showing the market baskets among which a consumer is indifferent. So I've got, see, that one there that gives us U1 level of utility. I've got that one there that is giving us U2 level of utility. We also have that one there that is giving us U3 level of utility. So what are we seeing? Well, what we're seeing is that more is better. The consumer, as the consumer is moving away from the origin, okay, so as the consumer is moving away from the origin, the level of utility increases. Therefore, it makes more sense for this consumer to go for the third indifference curve there. Okay, yeah, so in this case, if the question was among bundle A, B, and D, which one is least preferred? It's bundle D. Bundle D is least preferred. Which one is, more preferred? It's bundle A. Why? Because the consumer is going to derive that high amount of utility from consuming bundle A, and is going to derive this lower amount of utility if he tries to consume at bundle D. right? So therefore the least is D, the most is A. Okay, why? Because the more like as we are moving away from the origin, the level of utility increases. Okay, as you are moving away from the origin, the level of utility increases. Okay, so now what we want now is to find the most affordable bundle. Okay, we want to find the most affordable bundle that will maximize the consumer utility. Yeah, because what we've seen is, well, yeah, we've shown what indifference caves are and all those things, but we have not yet incorporated the issue to do with the budget line, right? We've not yet incorporated the issue to do with the budget line. So therefore now what we want is to find the utility maximizing bundles. Okay, to find the utility maximizing bundle. So which one is this? Which bundle is going to maximize the consumer's utility? So now we need to bring these two together. We bring in the budget line, we also bring in the indifference cave, then we do the analysis. Okay, so now what we are seeing is a case like this. Okay, it's a case like this where what we're able to see is that the units of clothes that this guy can buy, given that he's not consuming any food, yeah, assuming that this guy is not consuming any food, he just wants to buy clothes, he can buy 40 units of clothes. Okay, flipping the coin, if this guy only wants to spend all his income on the consumption of food, yeah, without buying any clothes, then this guy will be consuming 40 units, will be able to buy 80 units of food, right? And then what we're also seeing is that there is a bundle D there. Okay, there's a bundle D there that gives this guy U3 amount of utility, but well, it is not possible for this guy to afford that particular bundle looking at his income and the prices of clothes and also the price of food, right? It's not possible for this guy to be consuming at bundle D. Why? This bundle is it's beyond his income actually, right? That bundle is beyond his income. Okay, that bundle is beyond his income. Therefore, the only bundle that this guy can consume is bundle A there. Okay, it's bundle A. Why? Because at bundle A, he is going to manage to buy 40 units of food and 20 units of clothes, right? Because at that particular bundle, the budget line is tangent to the indifference cave only at point A. Only at point A. Okay, so what we know is that this region here below the budget line, this region, this guy can afford any bundle that is lying below the budget line, right? So the consumer can afford any bundle that is lying below the budget line, but at the same time this guy cannot afford any bundle that is lying beyond the budget line, right? Yeah, because you cannot consume beyond your income. Yeah, you cannot consume beyond your income, so the only thing you do is to consume within your means. Okay, yeah, so that is what we are seeing right there. So now the question is, well, where is the consumer going to maximize his or her utility? Well, it's at a point like point A, right? So at a point like point A, because we know that at point A the slope of the budget line is equal to the slope of the indifference cave. Okay, so we know that it's at a point like point A there. In short, this is the bundle that is affordable, one, and the consumer is also going to maximize his utility after consuming this bundle A. Okay, so maybe just in addition to this, Okay, just in addition to that, what we also know is that at this particular point, point A, so at A, yes, we've said that the slope of the budget line is equal to the slope of the indifference curve, but mathematically, this means that the marginal utility of good X, okay, should be equal to the marginal utility of good Y at A. Okay, so the marginal utility of good X should be equal to the marginal utility of good Y, which also means that marginal utility per dollar, so marginal utility of good X per dollar over marginal utility of good Y per dollar should be equal. Okay, which straight brings in the concept of equimarginal principle, right? Where we're saying that the marginal rate of substitution between good X and good Y should be equal to the ratio of prices of these two commodities, right? Therefore, the marginal utility of good X over the marginal utility of good Y should be equal to the ratio of the prices of these two commodities. That is at point A. Okay, that's at point A there. Okay, yeah. How is that, ma'am? Okay, so far so good. That's okay. Okay, maybe we can now bring in the concept of elasticity. We discuss elasticity and see what, and see how far we can go. So, elasticity, basically, when you're talking about elasticity, we're just looking at the response of quantity demanded to a change in price, right? So, for instance, when there's an increase in the price of a commodity, how will consumers respond? You know, will they respond in the negative sense, or maybe they'll the demand is not going to change, or maybe demand is actually going to change by this higher margin? So that's the concept of elasticity. Okay, so just look at the extent to which one variable changes as a result of the other variable, as a result of a change in the other variable. So in this particular case, we pay attention to how many variables: price, income, price, income, about 4 variables. Okay, so pay attention to the price, we pay attention to the income, we pay attention to the quantity itself. Basically 3. Okay, three variables. But then this is very important to economists, because would want to know if, for instance, there's a change in policy, how is that change in policy going to affect other variables? So, for instance, the government tries to increase taxes by this percentage. How is this going to affect demand for certain commodities? Okay, let's say the government decides to implement a tax on alcohol, for instance. They say that let's say, as the buyers of alcohol are buying, they're supposed to pay, let's say, 10% tax. How is this going to affect the demand for alcohol? Okay, if the government says pay every bag of milling you are buying, you're supposed to pay this much tax, how is that going to affect the demand for milling? By what percentage will the demand change? So that's the concept of elasticity. Okay, so we want to understand the sensitivity of market demand to a change in price, so that we gauge the effect of certain policies. Is this particular policy good or bad? For us to arrive at the conclusion, we'll have to monitor these market variables. Okay, so anyways, by definition, elasticity is just a percentage change in quantity due to change in price. That is the price elasticity of demand. So price elasticity of demand is nothing but a percentage change in quantity due to percentage change in price, right? Yeah, we know that we can expand this to this. So elasticity of price elasticity of demand can be quantity 2 minus quantity 1 over quantity 1, the whole lot of it divided by P2 minus P1 over P1, which means that it looks at the percentage change. So the top part there is the percentage change. So it's the percentage change in quantity divided by the percentage change in price. So in short, with elasticity, we want to understand that, well, if we increase or change price by this percentage, how is that going to affect quantity demanded? Right? Yeah, so how is that going to affect quantity demanded? By how much? By how many units will quantity demanded for or increase as a result of a change in price? But take note that price elasticity of demand is always a negative. It's always negative. Why? It's because of the negative relationship between price and quantity. We know that if we increase price, quantity demanded is going to fall. If we reduce the price, quantity demanded is going to increase. So there is this negative type of relationship. When one variable goes up, the other one should fall. So because of that, there's a negative like elasticity, price elasticity of demand will always be negative, right? So price elasticity of demand will always be negative. Okay. So for instance, right, let's look at this. When the price is 12 kwacha 50, your quantity demanded is 0. So this is the maximum price, right? This is the maximum price. So it's a case like this. We're saying here we've got P, there we've got quantity, and then we have got this negative demand, negatively sloped demand curve. So when the price is 12 kwacha 50 there, people are not buying anything, right? Yeah, so it's like that. Yeah, so when the price is 12 kwacha 50, people are not buying anything, it's 0. Then the price reduces to 7 kwacha 50, people at least now they can buy something. Oh, sorry, 10 first. So 10.0 there. When it's 10, when the price is 10, people are buying 20 units. When the price reduces to 7 kwacha 50, they can buy about 40 units. 40 units, just like that, just like that, just like that, until a situation where the price is 0, then they buy 100, which means price elasticity there is practically 0. Okay, but then the biggest question is, what is it that is going on here? Well, what we're able to see is that what we're able to see is that when the price is too high, when the price is too high, it makes sense that elasticity will be, perfectly, demand will be perfectly elastic. No wonder it's just going to infinity. The price is just too high. So at this particular price, demand is going to be like elasticity is going to be infinity. Okay, the price is too high. So practically, it's more like quantity that is going to be demanded is 0 because the price is too high. You reduce the price, at least quantities are now, we can see that they are selling something. You further reduce the prices, you keep on selling something. So what you are seeing is that as you are reducing the price, practically the quantity is increasing, as we can see. So there is this negative type of relationship. As the price is reducing, the quantity is actually increasing. Okay. Yeah. So what it is as the price is reducing, price elasticity of demand also reduces. because by nature consumers want to buy something of a good quality at a low price. So as the price is falling, demand is increasing, meaning that the response, or in short, consumers, there will be less intensity for these consumers to actually reduce the quantity. No wonder they're increasing the quantity that they're buying, because the price is falling. So as the price is falling, demand is increasing. As the price is falling, demand is increasing. So there's this table I'm looking for. Yeah, this table here, which guides us on the interpretation of price elasticity of demand. Okay, so demand is said to be elastic if it is more negative than -1. So for instance, let's say we have calculated the value for price elasticity of demand, and it's, let's say, -1.5. This is more negative than -1, meaning that demand is elastic. So demand is elastic. So it's a case where we have 0, then this side we're in the negatives, this side we're in the positives, and then we're saying that if the value is lying between 0 and -1, then you're going to say that demand is inelastic. Okay, inelastic. So if it's the answer you've calculated is lying between 0 and -1, then the conclusion there will be that demand is inelastic. Okay, so demand is inelastic. And if you have calculated and then the answer you found is actually more negative than -1, which means you're now going this side, then it means that demand is elastic. So, yeah, demand is elastic. So demand is elastic if it's more negative than -1. Okay, and if demand is elastic, you reduce the price, you're going to increase the spending on the good. People will be buying more of this good. Why? Because demand is elastic. Demand is responding to the reduction in price by a higher margin. So you reduce the price, let's say by 1/4, you notice that the demand has increased because demand is elastic. Yeah, but if demand is inelastic, meaning that the answer is lying between 0 and 1, you reduce the price, you see that even you try to reduce the price, but that still ends up reducing the total spending on the good, which means you just end up losing as the firm, because demand is inelastic. Demand is not responding to this price cut. Alright, and then if you have calculated and then you found that the answer is exactly -1, then this is what we call unitary elastic. Okay, unitary elastic. This basically means that you, for instance, you change the price by 10%, quantity demanded will actually let's say increase by the exact 10%, which means that there's nothing that you're doing. So you increase the price, sorry, you reduce the price thinking that you're going to increase your revenue is not going to change, because demand is unitary elastic. Yeah, demand is just unitary elastic. Right. Okay, let me see that. Cigarettes and alcohol don't affect demand even after an increase. It's just that drunkards and smokers, I don't know how they are made. If it's cigarettes, it's even worse, because that thing is even written, this thing is harmful for health, and someone still goes ahead and buys it. Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, you're right. These, I don't know why, but practically the economic maybe explanation could be that it goes back to preferences, addiction, and yeah, basically those two. Because you find that even after the price increase, as I've already said, they will still buy. For some, it's just that they're addicted to alcohol, they can't stop. They're addicted to smoking, they can't stop. So even if the price was to be increased to 20 kwacha per, let's say per whatever they're calling it, I don't know if they call it a stick or whatever of cigarette, they will still they'll still buy because they can't survive minus it. Oh, I see. Well, the issue is again the reason why, because at some point I was thinking, why can't they ban alcohol like completely? But then I came to realize that they are getting huge amount of tax from beverage from those guys that make alcohol. So for them, stopping that means that it's more like they're cutting the source of revenue. So yeah, that's the thing. So they cannot really stop it. Maybe the only thing that they can do is putting those funny policies: don't smoke in public, don't do this and that, which don't even work in Zambia. Yeah. Yeah, so at the end of the day, it goes back to tax. They get tax, huge amount of tax from Zambia breweries and these other alcohol producing firms. So no wonder they can't really cut. Yeah, okay. So I assume this is going well, right? Just confirm that. Oh yeah, it's revenue at the end of the day. Yeah, because for me, I was thinking, why can't I do? I was actually thinking about doing a more like a research on those and why, recommending that it should be. But then I was like, when I read more about it, I was like, no, this is a dead end. Oh, okay, that's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. Okay. Yeah, and then the other one is the income elasticity of demand. Yeah, it's just the income elasticity of demand, and this one, just like price elasticity, yeah, it just measures the so the income elasticity of demand just measures the percentage change in quantity demanded as a result of the percentage change in consumer income. So as the income of the consumer is increasing, how is this guy going to change his amount of this commodity that is demanding, right? But this depends on the nature of the good we are dealing with. Are we dealing with an inferior good, or we are dealing with a normal good? Or maybe in the worst case scenario, are we dealing with a luxury good? Okay, so what we know is that an inferior good is a good that has got a negative income elasticity. Okay, so why is that the case? It's because with an inferior good, the moment your income is increased, okay, so an increase in income will lead to a drop in quantity that you are buying because the good is inferior. Okay, I usually give an example of soya chunks. Yeah, for me, I can only eat soya chunk when I don't have money. When I have money, I'd rather go even just for carpenter bed, not soya chunk. Yeah, so that's an inferior good. So it's a good that has got a negative income elasticity because higher incomes reduces the quantity demanded and the share of such good. So what you're going to notice is that as long as a good is an inferior good, you increase the consumer's income, the consumer is just going to cut consumption of this particular good. So it's more like, why is it negative? It's because what you notice is that there is an increase in income, which means the denominator is positive, but then there is a reduction in quantity, so the numerator is negative. So negative divided by positive, the answer is negative at the end of the day. So no wonder you find that income elasticity is for an inferior good is actually a negative. Yeah, it's actually negative. Okay. Yeah. Then for luxury goods, these are goods that have got a higher value of elasticity. So the anything greater than 1 means that you're dealing with a luxury good. With a luxury good, it's a good where it's just there for luxury purposes. You don't even need it. It's just a want. It's not a need. It's luxury. Okay, so higher income raises the quantity demanded and the budget share of such particular commodities. So you increase the income, the consumer feel like, okay, let me show that I've got money. So you get the latest Benz because it's a luxury good for you. So you find that it has got elasticity value higher than 1. Okay, then of course goods that are not inferior, these are now normal goods where, yeah, there's a positive elasticity, but this value is not greater than 1. Okay, so yeah, the value is going to be between 0 and 1. So between 0 and 1, so the value lie between 0 and 1. Yeah, meaning that this is just a normal good. But if it actually goes beyond 1 positive side, then it means that you are dealing with a luxury good. You're dealing with a luxury good. And if it's negative, which means less than 1, which means you're dealing with an inferior good. Yeah, then the last one is the cross price elasticity of demand. Cross price elasticity of demand. Well, this one is just cross. It looks at so it's elasticity between good X and good Y, which measures the percentage change in quantity demanded of good X as a result of the percentage change in the price of another good Y. So this one depends on the nature of relationship existing between these two commodities. Are they substitutes or complements? Okay, so no wonder we are saying it's a percentage change in the quantity demanded of good X as a result of a percentage change in the price of good Y. So yeah, we are dealing with good X and we're also dealing with good Y. So we're dealing with two goods. So cross price elasticity measures the sensitivity of quantity demanded of one good to changes in the price of a related good. Okay, so if there's an increase in the price of let's say, yeah, let's assume that cigarettes and alcohol are related. Okay, that someone who is smoking should also be should also be drinking. So the question will be, if I increase the price of cigarettes, how is that going to affect the demand for alcohol? Yeah, so if these two goods are substitutes, for instance, assuming that when there's no alcohol someone can smoke, and when there's no cigarettes someone can drink alcohol, they're substitutes. So if they're substitutes, then they're going to have a positive cross price elasticity, implying that when you increase the price of one good, the demand will increase for another good, because an increase in the price of cigarettes, for instance, will force the consumer to stop smoking and instead substitute smoking with alcohol drinking. So therefore, you increase the price of cigarettes, the demand for alcohol will increase, because people who substitute, like they will run away from smoking, they will run to alcohol, thereby increasing the demand of alcohol. Right, so a positive cross price elasticity tends to imply that the two goods are substitutes. Wow. So let's start with this one, positive. So positive means that you increase the price of good X, quantity demanded of good Y increases, which means that these two can be substituted. So the increase in the price of good X will force people to stop buying good X, and therefore they'll go for its close substitute, good Y, and they demand more of good Y. Okay, that is for substitute. But if the two goods are complements, which is now the case of smoking and alcohol drinking, because what I've noticed is someone who is those people that drink to a larger extent, they'll also be smoking. They'll also be smoking. So that means that the two goods are complements to them. Therefore, if you increase the price of let's say cigarettes, what we should see is a drop in the price. So you increase the price of cigarettes, we should we should notice a drop in the quantity demanded of alcohol. Okay, we should notice a drop in the price of alcohol. Why? Because the increase in the price of cigarettes will reduce the quantity of cigarettes, but since cigarettes cannot be taken with alcohol, they'll also end up reducing the quantity of alcohol that they're taking. So for complements, there will always be a negative cross price elasticity, because the increase in the price of one commodity will not only reduce the quantity of this commodity, it will also reduce the quantity of the other commodity, because these two should be consumed together. Right. So with complements, there will be negative cross price elasticity. With substitutes, there will be a positive cross price elasticity. Yeah, so with cross price elasticity, it all depends on the nature of relationship that is existing between these two commodities. If they are substitutes, then they're going to have a positive cross. You increase the price of one, the quantity demanded of the other commodity goes up. Okay, because these can be substituted easily one for the other. Right. Okay. How is that? Perfect. That's good. That's really